His commentary and analysis is among the best, bar none. His words serve as a masterclass. He deconstructs the deceptions of the PSYOP war. He is the author of The Greatness Awaits You, the national leader of Australia One Party Incorporated, a monthly panel participant in JMC's Global Defense War, in a league of his own, an international treasure, a follower of Jesus Christ. He is Ricardo Bosi. Ricardo Bosi is a published author and speaker, international business consultant, former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, having served 24 years in the Australian Army, including postings to the Special Air Service Regiment, the 1st Commando Regiment, Headquarters Special Operations, and the U.S. Combined Joint Task Force Headquarters in Kuwait. Don't miss JMC Broadcasting's Bosi Briefs, where John sits down with Ricardo, helping to connect the dots, making sense of the madness, keeping us all grounded and united as the battle between good and evil play out before our very eyes. Join John and Ricardo every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at jmcbroadcasting.com.
April 25th, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to Bosi Briefs. I want to thank you for joining us again. We publish this program every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi weighs in on the current events. Please share these episodes far and wide, and be sure to subscribe for free at jmcbroadcasting.com. Quick couple of announcements. Our good friend, Mr. Wano we'll go here. Thank you very much. My mistake. Look, we have an all-new Patriot Q&A Power Hour. Every month, we feature a different expert to answer your questions for a solid hour. And joining us April 30th, Thursday, is Captain Rob Cunningham. Come join us. Get your questions answered. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and learn all about that option. I'm moving it forward now to our good friend Wano Savin and his Chief of Staff, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck. They are hosting the Fraud Fighter Summit, uniting the front lines against fraud. June 15th through 17th, Ahern, I guess it's pronounced, Hotel in Las Vegas. You'll want to attend this if tickets are still available. Learn all about that by visiting fraudfightersummit.us. Going to be covering some very important issues that are going to wreak havoc as they get exposed, they unravel, but no pain, no gain. Will never be taken down the road again. Let's go back to the other image, if you will, please, about mortgage fraud, bond fraud, government waste and corruption, election fraud, healthcare scams, and so forth. So show some love to your country and go say hello to Wano Savin, Fraud Fighter Summit in Las Vegas. All right. Thank you very much. A couple of quick announcements. At JMC Broadcasting, we are going to be launching soon, maybe June, a new program potentially titled Off Planet or Off World with JMC Broadcasting. Stay tuned. This will be a monthly panel of experts and people sharing evidence and experiences on the subject that perhaps the president's about to begin to share with us. President Donald J. Trump has spoken with us via the social platforms that we will now be releasing the contents that has long been sealed, top secret files on UFOs, Area 51, so forth and so on. So stay tuned for that new program coming. Also, on the healthcare side, at American Media Periscope, the former news network I had founded back in 2020, back there, we really spearheaded the healthcare movement with my good friend, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and that opened the floodgates to all the other great doctors and scientists, and we blew the whistle on that immediately. We're going to be bringing back full coverage, just the way you have here on the military, economic, and intelligence focus. We will take the same approach on healthcare with the healthcare experts. This slated to begin in June as well. There will be a show host, someone you may know. I'm leaving the name out at the moment till we wrap everything up, but Stay tuned. We will be giving the healthcare successes and challenges and information you need to stay healthy and to avoid what they've put us through our whole lives. And we'll address the legislation, the RFK committees, and so forth. It'll be very, very thorough, very, very thorough. Stay tuned for that, perhaps launching here in June. Okay, I'm going to do a brief monologue to get us in the zone before we bring on our esteemed guest, Mr. Ricardo Bosi. Now, the layers are peeling back faster than most can process. What you are witnessing is not chaos. It is mastery at work. NASA, the Pope, conservative media darlings and influences now all exposed. Keep watching. The sacred cows of both the left and the so-called right are being led to the slaughter. No one who played in the globalist sandbox is immune. You know who you are. The exposure is not partisan. It is purification. So let's talk about moon missions and the great distraction. Why the sudden, last week or so ago, why the sudden rush back to the moon? Why the coordinated media push? The answer is simple. They need your eyes pointed up while the ground shifts beneath you. Ricardo often talks about they got you looking at this hand when this hand is doing what really counts at the moment. So do not be distracted by the shiny objects in the sky. The real battle is here on Earth, in your bank account, in your ballot box, in your churches, and in your schools. Axe Day and the chains of the system. April 15th has come and gone, a day that symbolizes everything wrong with the old order. Income extraction, financial surveillance, and the illusion of consent, keyword. But this tax day feels different, the one that just passed us. The system is creaking, the legitimacy is gone, and more Americans than ever are asking the forbidden question: why do we still pay for our own enslavement? Well, change is coming. It's coming faster than you may think, and faster what they want you to believe. Cuba, a U.S. territory? Some say yes already. Others say maybe not yet. We'll be watching closely. The strategic realignment of the Western Hemisphere is underway. Cuba's position geographically, geopolitically, and symbolically makes it a piece on the board that cannot be ignored. Will we soon have boots on the ground there? Probably not. I don't know. Our military panels can weigh in, but you can rest assured there is activity taking place. The whispers are becoming roars. The preparations are visible to those with eyes to see. So what comes next? The pendulum has swung far. Corruption, control, deception, all have had their season. But the pendulum always returns. And when it swings back, it will not swing gently. And that's where we are, folks. It will swing with the full weight of justice, restoration, and divine timing. The final act is here. And Ricardo and I will be discussing that and showing that to you with the Trump comms in just a moment. The final act is here. Not the end, but the beginning of what comes after the end of the old world. So stay prayerful, stay watchful, and stay faithful. It is the time between the promise and the fulfillment, the space between the storm and the calm, the window in which the faithful are separated from the fearful. We are entering now the final act before the pendulum shifts. All right, the storm you haven't seen yet. This is a couple of quotes, very recent, one a year ago, one a week ago, from our good friend, Mr. Juan O'Savin. The storm you haven't seen yet is the one that will break the world. If people think we're in the storm now, not even in the slightest. You haven't seen waves breaking over the bow yet. The next 18 months, Juan says, we will see more change, more trauma, and more history than any era in the history of this world. All these things we're going to have to fight in this reset of America. The war of all these things, the war in the financial realm, is going to be the greatest of them all. So put on your seatbelts, folks. Pray, plan, and prepare. Chaos without clarity Problems without solutions equals fear porn from podcasters. Use discernment, whittle it down, garbage in, garbage out. If you're not feeling good after some episodes, take a look at what you're putting in. It's not that we can't address the issues, they need to be addressed. But again, chaos without clarity, problems without solutions, what's the value there? Choose wisely. All right. And for those, and there are many new folks coming aboard, thank you very much for taking a peek around at the reality of the world we live in, which we decipher these deceptions here on this broadcast. And those that are coming aboard newly, who is Riccardo Bosi? Riccardo Bosi is an international treasure, former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel who served 24 years in the Australian Army. He is the national leader of Australia One Party. Please welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi.
John, good evening. Absolute pleasure to be with you again. Thank you for your kind invitation.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Before I jump into, I've got a lot of different things I want to touch on in the next 90 minutes with you. I notice a change in backdrop. Why don't you orient us to what we see behind you and why the change?
Thank you. I'm about to commence, as part of the A1 program, a pre-constitutional convention educative process, and it's called The Rebirth of a Great Nation. It's a 10 to 12 part series commencing next Wednesday, and it will replace my weekly Green Room, which is an update for Australia. And it'll take us from episode 1, which is called Foundations, and take us through all the issues that we need to consider and how we need to consider it in terms of preparing the people for creating their own constitutional convention or participating in the constitutional convention to create a new constitution for the Constitutional Republic of Australia, which is the model that we would like to see. Now, this isn't being imposed upon anybody. This is an A1 internal process. Everyone is welcome to come and watch the program, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in Australia. Every Wednesday. But after that, there'll be a 1 hour discussion for the A1 supporters online, and we'll talk through the issues. But certainly everybody can come to watch. The important part of this is it's a model that we like, it's one that we refine, and it's unprecedented in our political history, because what we are keen to do is get genuine grassroots input and understanding, because the constitutional process that we had that produced our 1900 Constitution, which was finally signed in 1901, was developed by experts, which is a good thing to do, and the people got to vote on it. But the people realistically had no clue what it entailed. And if they saw it in its full glory, they wouldn't like it as much as they currently do today. And so this process is going to be very exciting. Now, the reason the flag is different is because people have issues with political parties. And I understand that, because they're loathsome organizations. They interfere with the elector speaking directly to their representative. And in the future, we hope to see political parties go. And so we've transitioned Australia One from a political party to a political movement. Now it's formally a national movement. And people can identify with a national movement a whole lot more. There's no selling of your soul here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flag behind me is one that I designed. It's simply to give an image for people to identify with this Constitutional Republic of Australia, which we will design and build and then put to the people for their consideration. And you need the philosophy, you need the policies, you need the structure, but you also need a symbol. And that flag behind me is it's a good symbol. It meets the needs. It's iconically Australian. It could only be an Australian flag. And that's what we want everyone in Australia to remember, that we are Australians first and last, regardless of our point of origin, much like the US. So that's the reason for the change.
Well, thank you. You just listed off a few things, about the Constitutional Convention and what, a movement, people getting behind a movement versus a political party and so forth and so on. But you failed to mention your great leadership. So I'll mention it. You've got that ingredient leading the way here. So folks, get behind Riccardo Bosi's message and let's make Australia godly again, as the cap behind you, I believe, states. Anyway, while on the subject of Australia, to my producer, put up Australia image number 1. Let's take a peek at what's recently transpired. Talking tough, Australian Prime Minister issues ultimatum to Iran. Open the Hormuz Strait or we'll shut down the Bass Strait. We can see I'm learning of the Bass Strait for the first time from this meme, looking at the Bass Strait between Melbourne and Tsunami, sure, it's one hell of a tsunami, Tasmania. Let's go to the next image and have some fun with this and have Ricardo weigh in. Off the heels of that, Australia image 2, Donald Trump. Last week, I am not happy with the retarded Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Airbus Albanese. We have helped him so much, but he did not want to help us in Iran, a very sad little man. I just heard he traveled to Asia to secure 1 million barrels of oil, which is only 1 day of supply for Australia. We could have helped you, Anthony, and the great people of Australia. Take note of that, my Australian friends, and the great people of Australia, but you made your choice by not helping us. We will not forget. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Double panel screen. Ricardo, what say you? First off, I just love President Trump's swipes at this gentleman. But what's your feedback?
Well, the first thing is that that's how we feel about Albanese in Australia ourselves. He's a retarded little man. He's a joke. He's hated. We know that the result of the last election was rigged. He didn't win in a landslide. We know that. Our organisation has previously provided prima facie evidence of massive corruption at every level. So we know he's not the Prime Minister. Secondly, he's a passable double for the real guy, who was famous for visiting Thai massage parlours and brothels. And talking tough, Albanese talking tough is the nicest thing we can say. He's a stooge and a joke, and we don't much like him either. He's just playing his role, trying to wake up the target audience. They're getting there slowly, let's say, reluctantly, but they're getting there slowly, realizing this guy is a busted flush. He's incompetent. He's a waste of time. His party is useless. And these are not just throwaways. These are actually accurate descriptions of their capacity to govern the nation. But that's a short version of it. Go hard, Donald Trump. We don't like him any more than you do.
Well, thank you. A quick comment. Your audience is probably familiar with Sheila Holm. I know you and Sheila have done some on-screen dialogue together in the past. I believe so. I have a monthly show called Special Report with Sheila Holm, and we just recorded it and being published this coming week. And in that discussion, she made reference to the flag. Forgot exactly the details, but there were 56 stars on that flag. So we're speculating, once things become more accepted and official, one would anticipate Canada, Greenland, Cuba, I don't know, maybe. But I'm wondering if Australia is one of those 6. What would your best guess in your crystal ball be? Is that a possibility?
My best, yeah. One, yes, it's a possibility. 2, I think it's actually a probability. And as a proud patriotic Australian, I don't want to be under anyone. But if we're talking real politics, the real world, and how we are handling how life is now, let's look at it from 2 perspectives. First of all, let's look at it from the legal or lawful perspective. Everything DJT has done has a lawful foundation to it. Now, we know that Australia's been a corporation, as have most countries on the planet. They haven't been sovereign nations. We know that. And so in the process of the last few years, what DJT has been doing, he's been moving in accordance with the laws the black hats have established and have been using. And DJT has said, fine, I'll play according to your rules, but you're not going to like it once I start playing hard, because DJT knows how to play a hard game. He likes winning. He loves winning. He loves it.
Yes, he does.
And so if we are under the US, and I believe we are, it's been done lawfully in that the corporation has been taken over, a hostile takeover, let's say, and we are now under the US. Now, is that for public consumption? Eventually, yes. Most people won't accept it at all, despite the preponderance of evidence that suggests that we were a plantation, we were a colony, and we still are. We're a slave colony under Great Britain. And the evidence is in the preamble to our Constitution. There's a good history on colonies and how the Romans executed their colonies and how the Greeks pursued theirs. different models and how the Brits have done theirs and how they've successfully run the planet by establishing colonies everywhere where the local governor or titular head is allowed to run their country as long as the Brits have foreign affairs and trade under their belt. And that's how it's been run. The US, for example, your 13 initial colonies were corporations and plantations. They were the words used by the Brits. And so the first problem that people need to get their head around is, yes, we're a corporation, we are a corporation, but it changed over the years, but we've never quite been the sovereign nation. So if we are under the suzerainty of the United States, then there's a legal basis to it. Secondly, even if we weren't, and I've made this very clear to people because I've been in this game now for a long time, we are incapable of governing ourselves because of the penetration of every aspect of life in Australia by the Masonic filth. And that's just one of a number of secret societies that actually does the heavy lifting on behalf of the forces that actually run the planet. And so I think that the numbers I've given before previously, something like this. We have about 27 million people in this country, which is the same, almost the same area as the continental US. We're less than 1/10 of your population. Of that 27 million, let's say there's 10 million children. So let's say that leaves 17 million adults. Of that 17 million, probably 15 million are Masons or controlled by Masons. That leaves about 2 million adult Australians that are not bound to the Masonic filth. Now, can we pull together out of that 2 million? Can we pull together people to run the country over some period of time? Maybe, because we've got to learn how it's done. Because the people with the physical skills, if not the moral courage to do the right thing, they certainly have the technical capability. Are the Masons and the people that are terrified of upsetting the Masons? You know, their contracts depend upon the Masonic connections. That's how this country works. So we couldn't do it, even if the US said, "Look, we've cleaned out all the filth. Over to you. Go run your country." The bad guys would be back in charge in record time, simply because we don't have the people to do it. So, on a practical sense, quite apart from the legal sense, on a practical sense, Australia must be under the suzerainty of the United States for a good few years before we can prove to them that we are worthy of controlling our nation. That sounds quite sycophantic, but it's just practical. The US and a coalition of militaries around the planet have spent blood and treasure, and the casualties are in the five figures, tens of thousands. They have been fighting this very real war with massive kinetic elements, apart from the psychological and informational elements to the war. They have suffered and paid, and they're not about to hand back Australia to a bunch of well-meaning incompetents to run the joint. So if you don't like it, then get busy. This is to the Australians. If you don't like that idea, then get busy and learn how to run a modern 21st century constitutional republic. Now, the small problem with that is most people can't write a strategic plan. Most people can't read a balance sheet. Most people can't. And that's not a criticism. It's just a practicality. You know, as a nation, we have wonderful individuals that are quite capable of doing a lot of things. The first problem is where are they? Where have they been the last 10, 15, 20 years? Silent. So they might have the technical skill, but they don't have the moral courage to do what's got to be done. And moral courage is far rarer than physical courage. You'll find any soldier that'll face the gun. What's the quote? To find a reputation even in the cannon's mouth. But to get them to tell the truth, to think the truth, to speak the truth, to have the moral courage, unarmed, but to do what's got to be done, say what's got to be said, think what's got to be thought, there are too few people that have the ability to do that. And so, point one, whatever Trump has done is legal and lawful. Point two, it's also the only way that Australia has any future in the future, by being under the suzerainty of the United States, while we learn to govern ourselves first as counties. If you want a solution to it, I'll be talking about this over the next 10 to 12 weeks. Learning how to run a county, learning how to run a region, learning how to run a state, and maybe learning how to run a federal government of a constitutional republic. And then, having overcome all these milestones, these hurdles, and we're talking years away, we can finally say, you know what, I think we might have the ability now to take a little bit more control of our world. And the United States, under Donald Trump's national security strategy, has made it absolutely clear. They have no interest in running the planet. They have no interest in running the countries. The countries must run themselves. But unwritten in that plan is the countries must demonstrate they have the ability to do so. And that's why Australia One, for example, is pursuing this educative process, and in preparation for our constitutional convention to create a constitutional republic of Australia, so we can demonstrate we've done the thinking at least, and then we can get to work, start creating the models that'll create this future Australia. So that's a very long answer, but it's necessary to cover all of those parts because there's a lot of emotion involved, as you can imagine. A white knuckle grip on the past, even to a flag, and it's fascinating. I was explaining this to my bride the other day. The flag's up there, and that's going to attract more angst than any other aspect of the next 10 to 12 weeks. Why? I'll give you an example. One of the businesses that I started many years ago, wrote the business plan for it, 8,000 words, 5-year cash flow forecasts, 13 annexes, including all the formulas and the rest to indicate that this plan had legs. I had 5 other partners, all with different levels of expertise, with the R&D, the head of R&D that was developing the technology upon which this particular business would succeed or fail, and other people. And I wrote the plan, printed it out, gave everyone a copy, and just for something on the front, I put a picture of a chef, a cartoon picture of a chef with a pie, a nice hot pie in his hand. And I asked for comments. I said, look, take a week or two, read through this and give me your comments back. The comments that came back focused on the picture. I don't like the picture of the pie on the front. I don't like the picture of the cook on the front. And it was, I don't know how many hours into the wee hours of the morning. I was working during the day and sort of finishing work at 5 o'clock. And then I go to bed at midnight, 2 in the morning, working on this business plan. And I wasn't offended so much, but it just surprised me. And it reminded me that you can't ask people to take action on a large, complex subject of which they have no experience. So I'm expecting the flag. What's this? My grandfather died under the red ensign. My father fought under the blue ensign. And they'll die in a ditch over the flag. And that's fine, I guess. But the reality is there's hard work that needs to be done. The great labors of peace, of which I spoke for a couple of years now, the great labors of peace, learning what it is, and the privilege, the absolute privilege and unique place in history where we get the chance to create from scratch the future of the governance in our country. The ancients would have loved it. Cicero and the Roman senators would have loved the ability to be right where we are today, to actually create it, to draw upon this magnificent inheritance of ours in Western civilization, to create the future for our children and our grandchildren and all the generations to come. We should be thrilled. So let go of one of my challenges is to get the people to let go of the past to realize that the future is so exciting and the past wasn't as good as you thought it was. And to let go of the past, to move forward with confidence and anticipation for this extraordinary privilege that we as a small assemblage of people have to shape the future of this country. It's brilliant. And we thank Donald Trump and the White Hats. And if we're under the suzerainty of them for a number of years, good. We're going to need all the help we can get.
Well, thank you very much for laying that down. You whittled it down from 27 or 28 million Australians down to effectively about 2 million that is not completely controlled by the demonic and Masonic forces. So these 2 million folks, you've got a lot of challenges that lie ahead in this trajectory that history will write about. And you're absolutely right in bringing that to the forefront 20 years from now when history writes your country's journey. What a great time for these 2 million to be a part of that history. So you're going to go through a lot of challenges ahead. for sure, but a better Australia lies ahead for those efforts. So thank you, Ricardo. I want to change subjects to the passing, or is it really the passing of Wilcock, David Wilcock? Let's put up image number 1 on a 3 panel. There we go. All right, UFO researcher David Wilcock committed suicide as reported at his home in Colorado. Boulder County Sheriff's, talk about the Boulder Sheriff Department. If you remember back to the little young girl, I forget her name, that vanished. Anyway, Boulder County Sheriff's Office reports they found him outside holding a weapon. Within minutes, he turned it on himself. As reported, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, I haven't looked into this very much at this time. Is there a coroner's report? Are there pictures? Are there images? I mean, where are the official documents to support that public narrative? But let's take a look at the next image. All right, David Wilcock published this. I am not yet sure if I am doing a show tomorrow. I've had some very intense stuff going on this weekend. Either way, I want you to all know how much I love and appreciate you. Always remember that the Creator is within, and we live in a loving universe. I am grateful to you for all of your love, care, and support. Now, my analysis of a write-up like that sure looks like something is on his mind and he's leaving a message behind. I also came across, I don't have it on the screen for you, but statements from David that I am not suicidal. There's all kinds of information and conflicting things out there. Let's put up the list to my producer. At the same time, here's what we have. We'll have Riccardo weigh in on this. We have 15 names, 5 missing, 10 dead, all in the last couple of weeks, all tied in one way or another to aerospace, UFOs, advanced research, or disclosure circles. Some were scientists, some were inside high-level government or defense-linked programs, some were public figures who spent years, like David Wilcock, speaking about UFOs, ancient civilizations, or hidden knowledge. Well, that's an interesting commonality amongst 5 missing, 10 dead, all in a relatively recently, in a short period of time. I don't know. It's a lot of coincidences. What's your cursory analysis of this, Riccardo?
Thanks, John. Let's start with the most personal aspects, and we'll work out to the larger ones, because the first most important lesson to get out of this is the planet is about to go through some very tough times, and suicide's not the solution. That's the first lesson. The first most important thing that we've got to talk about this. Suicide is never the solution. Simple as that. Now, I've mentioned this before.
Yes.
We've had experience of that in my family. My mother committed suicide, and we don't hold her culpable for that because of the torments that she was facing at the time. Purely terrestrial torments, let's say, private family matter. And after 9 months of struggling to deal with it, it was all too much, and she took her life. It's not the way out. It is just not the way out. So first things first, seriously, please understand that suicide is never the solution. You're going to have to deal with it on the other side, so best you deal with it here. And the best solution is to pray through Jesus, and you'll be amazed at the strength it can give you. It won't make it easier. Your life will still be hard, but at least you've got someone that has gone before you upon whom you can rely. Okay, so that's the first point. So if anybody's feeling like it's too much, yeah, it's too much. We've all been there. I've been there, standing on a hill in a jungle, 9mm pistol in my hand. And it wasn't so much I wanted to, but you realized it'd be so easy. Just go on. It'd bring an end to a range of problems. Now, in retrospect, the problems were minor. At the time, they were insurmountable. They appeared to be insurmountable. So put the 9mm back into the holster and get back on with the work. Get back to work. Get doing. And that's what I did. And so it's not the solution, regardless what you think. You've got some unhelpful thoughts flying through your head. So that's the first one on Wilcock. So just don't do it. Reach out, ask for help, Get on your knees and pray to Jesus. He will hear you and you will hear him. Next point. In terms of Wilcock himself, there was an interview with some people who knew David online. Jean-Claude from Beyond Mystic, with a couple of people, some I didn't know. Cliff High was one I did know, and they all had personal knowledge and experience of David Wilcock as a man and what he was like. And they described him as fragile, which is a polite way of saying uncertain, broken in parts perhaps, and subject to the manipulations of a psychopath. And so it might, this event might be true or it might be untrue. We have no idea. It doesn't matter. The fact is that David was challenged in his life, and people saw that, and they tried to reach out and help him. Now, whether he's in Valhalla, and for those of you who know what Valhalla means, or not, is largely immaterial. There was a man struggling with his life, and let's hope he's at peace one way or the other. So that's that aspect. In terms of the larger disappearances, what better way is there to reveal to a society the weaknesses it has if it's, if the driving force behind that society start to disappear. Now, this is a theme of a book that we've spoken about previously. You might want to get a copy of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, an extraordinary book. I won't spoil it for you. But imagine if all the drivers of society started disappearing. Who's left? Who's left to make things happen? So there's another aspect. So that speaks to the scientists that are allegedly disappearing or dying, and any number of people who have died or disappeared over the last many years. Are they gone, or are they in some sort of global witness protection, who will then reveal themselves later once the people have realized what's been going on around them? And so that's a long way of saying I'm not going to say exactly what occurred because I don't know. But there are many lessons to get from it. First one is don't suicide. Secondly, David was in trouble. Thirdly, there is a large show going on here. And as frustrating as it might be for everyone around the planet, if you had a full idea of the nature of our adversary, I guess everyone would be better placed to be patient and allow the plan to work itself out. So whatever we think is going on, if you think Iran is about the Straits of Hormuz, if you think adrenochrome is so actors can get a high, then great, but not even close. It is so large and so frightening that you'd have difficulty coming up with a solution. And so be patient and understand there is a plan. And it takes time. And by time, I don't mean one commercial hour on television. I mean decades and centuries. Let me give you one simple example that might be true, might not, but it's a good example. Ulysses S. Grant, commander of the Union forces, heroic general, becomes the president. And he signs this ridiculous order saying that the United States can become a corporation. And I was horrified when I read this. I thought, you mean he signed the Organic Act? What authority can he do that? I mean, you can't corporatize a sovereign people. You can't make them assets in a corporation, and yet that appears to be what he did. Now, if the option was to destroy the country completely, or at least buy time, by signing this act, and hopefully that someone in the future, 50, 100 years into the future, 200 years into the future, might get around to fixing the problem. This is an understanding of the process of time. Time has to be used. There are 4 phases of war: the advance as you move towards the enemy, the attack when you destroy the enemy, the defense when you resist an attack, the counterattack from them, and then the withdrawal. Now, withdrawal is where you disengage from the enemy under control, not a rout, but a withdrawal, a controlled withdrawal. Now, the purpose of the withdrawal is to fight the enemy on ground of your choosing. So if you're in a disadvantageous position militarily, and the enemy is coming at you on the fronts and the flanks, and you're in his killing ground, meaning he's prepared the killing ground, and you're right smack bang in the middle, you've got to withdraw. You withdraw your forces under control to a superior position, ground of your choosing, where you can now engage the enemy and destroy him. That's the purpose of the withdrawal. Now, in a strategic, in a geostrategic sense, that's what Ulysses S. Grant had to do. He had to create time. He had to withdraw. He had to accept a suboptimal situation where the entire country thought it was a sovereign nation, but it wasn't. It was a corporation, hoping that in the future somebody might be able to do something about it, because this was more than just a couple of years away. Now think about the same with David Wilcock, with the disappearing scientists, and the way this war is being fought by the white hats. Everyone is frustrated. Everyone is frustrated. Rip the Band-Aid off. Come on, let's get on with it. How long does it take? As long as it takes. Because the white hats have had to take the position that the forces of good were found in, and then maneuver them into a position where they could destroy, they could withdraw from, and then bring the enemy into their killing ground and engage them in ground of their choosing and destroy the enemy. This takes time. When you're talking about a planet and we're talking about forces beyond your comprehension, this takes centuries. This takes millennia. And so once again, if we get a picture of the forces at play, people will understand. But you can't be told, because that's just the way it is. And in time, you'll discover what you need to discover. So that's I guess a big picture view from the small to the big of David Wilcock. Wonderful young man, did what he could, and but many lessons from that event.
Thank you, sir. Let's put up to my producer, Mr. Poole, I think it's titled, and let's have a quick read on this. This is the analysis on X. They did not disappear. They were extracted. The mainstream media is panicking. They are telling you that 11 top-tier U.S. scientists with ties to nuclear and aerospace defense have mysteriously gone missing over the past 72 hours. Interesting perspective. He goes on to say they want you to believe it is a tragedy. They want you to believe it is a foreign attack. They are lying to you. Now, those 11 scientists did not vanish. They were extracted by the Global Military Alliance under the direct orders of Commander-in-Chief. Where are they now? They are deep inside the Cheyenne Mountain complex, finalizing, etc. Now, I'm not stating this to be fact. I'm just sharing perspectives have been published, in this case by Mr. Poole on X.com. I will conclude this subject, and we'll move on to something else with my statement, and that I find it highly suspect that this happens the way we've laid out, 11 people dead, 5 missing, all in a common space. I find it suspect at a time when President Donald J. Trump is preparing to release drip, drip, drip over time information about Area 51, aliens, UFOs, etc. So there you have that, folks. Let's move on to another subject. Kash Patel. All right, here he says, this is an excerpt of a longer speech he gave. They tried to rig the entire system. That's something I'm not going to allow. We are going to be making arrests. It's coming. I promise you, it's coming soon. Now, I saw Kash deliver this comment on a soundbite clip from Maria Bartiromo. This man is serious about these statements, and I take him on his word. Get ready, folks. And imminent is a key word he's also used in other settings. So we've got Brennan as the low-lying fruit. That seems to be the narrative, the name that's in the narrative. Brennan, Clapper, Strzok, Page, that clan during that period of time on the Russia hoax collusion as the lower-lying fruit to set the stage leading to Obama. Who said that? President Trump said all roads lead to Obama. I believe it begins with these moves that Kash Patel is letting us know are rather imminent. What's your analysis of this, Ricardo?
There's an element to this. Everything you said is accurate. There's an element which people must bear in mind. The system that has been running the planet works on fear. Regardless of the money that people get paid, it works on fear. It continues to function for fear of consequence. Now, we'll call them the Masons, but there are any other number of secret societies or those controlled by secret societies. their top cover, they're all blackmailed, but they're all safe because if one goes down, all goes down, so nobody's going to squeal. That's the way it works. They live in fear. What all of these forces are now discovering is their top cover is disappearing. So if you've got somebody down the food chain and they get arrested, then the people even below them are wondering, well, how did so and so get arrested? He's protected. And the higher up the food chain you go, the greater the terror is now going to penetrate the entire system. Once the top cover goes, and the white hats are picking their moment and their targets carefully, as the top cover seems to be disappearing, the panic will really set in quite profoundly. And you can pick, it happens at all levels. Again, the example in Australia recently, where police officers are now being arrested for pedophilia. Now that never happened, and the police forces around Australia are run by pedophiles. They traffic their own children. I've interviewed an individual on my own show where he has first-hand evidence where he was protecting a girl who was being trafficked by her New South Wales police detective father. He was trafficking his daughter. This gentleman protected the girl, went to prison for it because he was set up by this Masonic filth in this country. But now what's happened is, and I'll be having him on the show sometime into the future, where all of a sudden Masons are disappearing and all sorts of accidents are happening to them. They might be driving down the road, there's an accident, and they find his car with him with a broken neck. So their protection is now disappearing. People that are just being charged or even named, heroic characters who are being charged and named from the police force, from politics, from sport, you name it. The fact that they're being named as facing charges is a signal to the rest of them saying, my God, the protection's gone. So while Cass is saying arrests are coming, trust me, okay, how many nothing burgers can you eat? We know that. The moment they say it's coming, I know it's not. But there's a reason why they do this. They've got to keep people hoping. They've got to get people angry. They've got the number of objectives to achieve. But what's happening is the protection of the top cover is going. So every time a name is mentioned, and DJT has said all roads lead to Obama. Now, we know Obama couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, which is basically an Australian expression for the man who's grossly incompetent. But he was the signature on the page. So it all leads to him, and that's important. Not that he's some sort of master criminal. He's not. He's just a homosexual who likes head jobs in limousines and presented well, basically. That's all he was. But the problem is for the criminal types within this organisation, every time that gets mentioned, everyone starts worrying. And that top cover, watch it carefully. Watch the people being arrested. It's happening in the US as well. The number of people that are now being arrested, charged, tried, found guilty for criminal activities. Now, the sentences might not be to your taste. You might think that they require execution. That'll come for those that deserve it. But yeah, Cash is just keeping the ball rolling, letting people know they are aware of what's going on. And yes, the arrests are coming. But this is terrifying the people. The more you shake the cage, the more the rats will start to panic, and you can catch them as they try to escape.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That takes us to Joe DeGeneva. Perhaps we have an image of Joe DeGeneva. And the purpose, of course, in discussing this, I think he's 81 years old. He had a thing or two to say about Russiagate. I think he was a Fox News contributor at the time. They stole our elections, and he inserted himself into that narrative in a very strong way. And now he's being potentially going to be assisting the Attorney General in the Justice Department and the rest of the team in going after Russiagate. I'm thrilled about this. Any comments about the ramping up by bringing in someone like Joe DeGeneva to take this on, off the coattails of what you just said, Rick, about Kash Patel shaking the cage and so forth? I think the cage just got shook a little bit more with this gentleman coming aboard. What's your take?
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that Joe's got the job, fantastic. But again, understand that the mission is paramount and the players are not disposable, but they have a life expectancy in the sense of you are useful to the job. And once that your use is finished, then you'll leave. So we've got to resist this temptation to look for heroes. Watch the operation pursuing its objective, regardless of the players involved. Now, it's human nature. We can relate to a person more than we can relate to an idea. I like him, I don't like him. I like her, I don't like her. And they symbolize the message for us, the fight for us. So
Mhm.
great that he's got the job, but watch carefully what occurs. Now, the bigger picture here is, for the longest time, the narrative from the other side was, "Oh, look, the election's over. Just forget it, move on. Let it go. Let it go. You're being silly." No, the election is key. It's the keystone to a major part of
Yes,
this whole war.
everything.
Because if the election
Mhm.
is finally proven to be false, which it has been, for those who are paying attention, let's be realistic. There's a ton of evidence about it. But once that's allowed to come out on the mainstream media that the 2020 election was stolen, everything that follows during that period is done. It's a lie. So that's why it's so critical. And not only that is it critical, but who were the players? Now it's coming out even here in Oz that the Chinese were deeply involved in this. And it wasn't the Russians, it was the Chinese, and who else, and who else, and who else. And so, again, it's keeping people worried. The guilty, the reason this, one of the reasons, let's say, that the White Hats have kept the fake election on the boil, but they haven't revealed it yet, is a timing issue. One of the considerations is they want to keep the actual guilty people terrified. You can't, if
Mhm.
it's exposed now, then what are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with the guilty Italians, the Chinese? Pick any nationality you like that was involved in this, either obliquely or directly. Even our former foreign minister in Australia, a guy called Alexander Downer, who was deeply involved in this. And then he was immediately disowned by the political parties as if they had nothing to do with it. All of these people are worried because, and anybody even obliquely connected to them are worried because it's still on the boil. That hasn't, DJT never let go of the election. Nobody's let go of the election. It's there. You're keeping everybody unbalanced. And so Joe's got the job, brilliant. But watch what happens as the job is projected rather than as it progresses, rather than the individuals. Please, the individuals are there for a purpose. They might be dead straight, brilliant. They might be bent, who are now being straightened up and they're doing a job for a period of time, or they might be bent and not even realize they're following white hat orders. So try to ignore the individual, watch the move, watch the play, because the players can be substituted at a moment's notice, and they will be. I mean, you've now got Hung Kao, for example, who's taken over as Secretary of the Navy. And there's a guy worth watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know who Hung Kao is, your new Secretary of the Navy, check him out. Former naval captain, special ops, allegedly the man that recovered JFK Jr.'s body. There's a young man with a bright future, let's say. But what's the subs? As the substitutions come in and out, you've got the people that have come in that had dodgy backgrounds, and all of a sudden their positions of power and trusted, and their dodgy background is revealed and they get dumped. What is it? All the world's a stage and we are merely players.
Mhm. Well, yeah, we discussed previously. You've often stated people get written in and out of the script to be used for certain purposes, sometimes overtly seen, sometimes not, Pam Bondi being a recent case. So good points on Joe DeGenova. And the key word with the gentleman who's taken over the Navy there on JFK Jr., allegedly is the key word, brought the body up. Anyway, let's move on to President Trump. Put this image up on the screen, please, to my producer. I'll read it to you. As President of the United States, I have access to information that could bring down the papacy and the Vatican and the entire Catholic Church overnight. These are called the Vatican files, which I won't release out of respect for the billion Catholics worldwide. But the weak Pope Leo of Vatican would do well to remember who he has to answer to if he continues to interfere in politics on behalf of the terrorist regime of Iran. The misinformation Pope spreads regarding the special combat operation is extremely dangerous. Jesus would have wanted peace through strength, just like I do. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and we will use our overwhelming strength to make sure they never do. This, the path to peace. thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. You know, I look at it this way. We saw, I don't know if we touched on it or not last episode, but the image that came out, the meme where Trump was depicted as Jesus healing somebody and so forth. Of course, he didn't create that, by the way. Of course, I think our audience knows that by now. That was created by someone else who the president just retweeted or whatever the case is. And then he made his comments about that. But I look at all of that as a deliberate precursor to bring us to the narrative that I just read on this screen here today. The focus now, of course, is on the corruption with the Pope himself at the Vatican and the Catholic Church. What say you, sir?
Yeah, this is a very important comm. The fact that DJT has addressed the issue. I have files that would bring down the Catholic Church. Now, those of us who have been in this game for a while have an idea of what that entails, but the implications for over 1 billion Catholics would be devastating. And this is an example of warning us that there's bad news to come, and you can't just turn up and say, what's the old example? The Sergeant Major is standing in front of the troops and is being told by his commanding officer, tell Johnson that his whole family was killed in an accident. But do it subtly, be gentle. And the Sergeant Major says, yes, sir, no worries. Just forms the men up and says, right, all of you people over there that got families, take one step forward. Johnson, where the hell do you think you're going? So you can't just dump it on them like that. Mm-hmm. You've got to let it go. Now, this is huge. This is quite significant. I could bring down the Catholic Church. Now, this is a message to all the Catholics that are watching. What does he mean by that? So there's a possibility that something's going to come out of the Vatican. Well, a lot of unpleasant stuff's going to come out of the Vatican. A lot of it was taken out in multiple plane loads years ago. A lot of it was destroyed and burnt years ago. Other things were flown out, not bars of gold, but other things were also removed, important documents. You know, and it covers everything from knowledge of extraterrestrials through to the corrupt system that's been running the planet for the longest possible time. The deal between the Pope and the reigning monarch of Britain in terms of who runs the planet on a day-to-day basis. All of this stuff. When they find out the Catholic Church has got nothing to do with Jesus Christ, my goodness me. Really? It's just too much too soon. But this is very, very important. This is one of the most sensitive, if not the most sensitive issue that has to be revealed to people of faith, not just Catholics, but the rest. When the Muslims are faced with the reality that Muhammad never existed and the whole thing was a trick to help shift, to create a band that could advance Talmudic Babylonian interests, and when the Jews find out that their original Hebrew religion that goes back a long way isn't what's being taught in the synagogues, but that's an adaptation of the Talmudic Babylonian religion, which is satanic in its nature. When the Hindus find out that their 700 gods are aliens from hundreds of thousands of years ago, and their sutras were records of space battles, and these are all the stories that are out there. And there's countless stories. But when you strike at somebody's religion, you're really going to be very careful, because when the most deeply held values are challenged, that's when people will dig in deepest and fight their hardest. So it's got to be done in a very particular way. And for some, it won't be done at all. And because the time frame that this war is being fought over is centuries. Everybody wants an answer by next week. Not going to happen. You want it next year? Not going to happen. 5 years? Oh, you'll see some changes in 5 years. Without a doubt. As 107 said, 18 months, what's the next 18 months? That's true, and a lot will come out. But there'll be things coming out in 100 years that we can't reveal now, or can't be revealed now, because people have an emotional attachment to it. I mentioned that previously with JFK, for example. They couldn't say that JFK was killed by CIA, or he wasn't killed at all, he was actually a double that got hit. That couldn't come out because there was too much emotional attachment to the man and the event. Once all those people died, you can say, hey, JFK wasn't killed, he was killed, but it was CIA, it wasn't CIA. You can start talking the truth because there's no more emotional attachment. I'll give you an example. um, the War of 1812 between the US and Great Britain. Terrible time, awful. And people are going, what? There was a war between Great Britain and the United States in 1812? What are you talking about? No emotional attachment, so you can give them facts. You can't give facts while there's massive emotional attachment. You've got to ease it in slowly. You've got to let people die, and then you can talk about it. It's not condescending, it's just practical. The truth will kill. Seriously. The truth
Yes.
will kill.
Great points. Let's shift gears. We're kind of combing through a lot of different issues. Let's look at the image of Hormuz, if to my producer will prompt my discussion. Here it is, Nikki Haley. The ship the U.S. seized in the Strait of Hormuz this weekend was headed from China to Iran and is linked to chemical shipments for missiles. It refused repeated orders to stop. Another reminder that China is helping prop up Iran's regime, a reality that cannot be ignored. As I understand, as reported by Will Barney on my Global Financial Reset show last Wednesday, basically our Navy put a comm out to the ship and said, clear the deck of your engine rooms because we're about to make a visit. And they, of course, blew a hole in the engines and so forth and so on. So in addition to all the other issues on the front end and on the back end concerning the Straits of Hormuz, we also have this narrative of what's on some of these vessels. And we can clearly see here the evidence of China feeding very important chemicals and agents and so forth to Iran, state sponsor of terror. Any views about that, sir?
Yeah, I mentioned, I'm not sure with you or another interview, but I mentioned the shadow fleet that Iran's been operating for the longest time, and it's not about oil. Oil's a convenient means by getting the target audience attention because it affects everything. The cost of oil affects the cost of everything. Why? Because you got to transport it. And just apropos of that, in Australia, we don't have a shortage at all. We got ships off the coast full. We have storage facilities full. But what's being played out as in respect to the oil, that is to show the people what the black hats intended. That's just to say they're aware of that. Is there an oil
Right.
shortage? No,
Mhm.
it's just not there. But that's what the black hats intended. So the white hats are allowing the black hats to reveal the means by which they're doing it. Now the white hats are smart, so they're using that. So hey, look, we can use this to get everybody's attention on the Straits of Hormuz, and over time we can start to reveal a whole bunch of other things that they're not intensively interested in. If you just out of the blue mentioned that China is facilitating Iran's development of weapons, people would go, yeah, okay, I don't care. The beer's cold. The footy game is great. I've got a meat pie. I'm okay. No, how about we get their attention by making it about oil. Then all of a sudden, oh, did you hear about Iran? China's been feeding it. Of course it has. There's so many other things. You think the shadow fleet has only been moving fuel? No, everything: gold, cash, children, weapons, chemical
Drugs.
precursor chemicals for whatever they need. You name everything bad that is on the planet, and I've left out a whole bunch of them. But you mentioned that, and all of a sudden you've got their attention to it because now China. Okay, so China's a bad guy. So China is a bad guy. Maybe we should do something about China. It's just not an economic war anymore. They have been acting illegally in an international scenario, and this could be construed as what's the jus ad bellum, the law of going to war. This might provide grounds for some military action against China. Jus ad bellum. So, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen. But can you see what's slowly being fed to China? China is we've dismantled, like the rest of the planet. We have dismantled our manufacturing. It's all in China. We have dismantled everything that we do. Our refining, we had four. We got one left, I think. The refining capability, all by design. China's doing a ton of that. But it's just economics. It's best that way. It's best. We get to add cheap stuff if somebody else is manufacturing it, right? Not the case. They're revealing who the bad players are. Now we know China's under control. Has been since DJT first took office and Xi Jinping visited him in Mar-a-Lago. That was the first part of the capitulation tour, but Xi Jinping came to Trump. That was very clear. That had to be done because DJT needed China under control. DJT and the White Hats helped Xi Jinping ostensibly maintain control of China. The other families, the other groupings that were vying for control were slowly taken out. So Xi Jinping was allowed to remain the figurehead and to start doing what had to be done. But China's a massively difficult problem to contain and control. But the image was there. And now they still have to provide the evidence that China was and is was a major problem and a major cause for much of the world's ills, along with a number of other countries. And so this connection of the shadow fleet delivering chemicals to Iran is just that China's a problem. Well, we better take care of China then. We've got the evidence, jus ad bellum. We have justification for going to war in the minds of the people. Not that that'll roll out that way, but you can see how they build up the scenario over time. And so when DJT threatens action against China, the people will have been prepared with the ideas that say, well, yeah, that makes sense because they're not good guys.
China is caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place now as the oil situation, just to talk about that for a moment, they're starving and thirsty for oil, and the mechanisms and ways in which they got it and paid for it have been disrupted. And so there's another thing to throw on the table. But I'm glad you mentioned, and I know you've talked about it before, how Xi Jinping is in fact working with President Trump and perhaps Putin, the three of them in certain capacities against what we'll call the New World Order. And I know that's conceptually hard for a lot of folks to see and understand when the constant permeating narrative for a long time has been China is the big boogeyman and the enemy. And yes, they are a formidable challenge and have been, but behind the scenes, if you want to just close your comment out on that, I'm going to take us into another subject. Behind the scenes, they are in fact working together against the real hidden enemy. True statement, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you stop watching mainstream media news, that's key, because if the glass is half full of rubbish, it doesn't matter how much good stuff you pour on top of it. So you got to stop watching mainstream media, apply discernment to what's on social media, because there's a lot of good information out there, and it'll start to clear your head. And I'll give you an example. I know you want to move on, but I'll give you an example. The supreme arrogance of the mainstream media, I've forgotten how bad they are because I just don't watch it. But there's a gentleman here in Australia, Conrad, let's call him Conrad the Punter. Now, Conrad's just an average Australian. He's a former teacher who has morphed into a political commentator with a podcast, and he points out uncomfortable truths to the Australian people about their government. Example, we give away most of our natural resources. The companies pay no tax. We get no royalties from it, and the companies are making an absolute fortune. So Conrad, and I'm not saying this guy's a good guy, a bad guy. I'm just saying he's doing a very good job of raising issues. Anyway, he learnt the game quite quickly. Former teacher, he has a master's, so he's an intelligent young man with a really good spirit to drive home the point. And he learnt the game quickly, and he started realizing the lobbyists were driving all of this. So he, with his followers, raised $200,000 to hire a lobbyist so they could present themselves at a Senate inquiry into gas prices and gas and oil prices, gas prices. And he turned up wearing a T-shirt, which he does, and he had his lobbyist in a suit and tie, or at least a suit with an open neck shirt. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. There's this journalist on Sky News called Laura Jays, I think. She has the IQ of a warm glass of water. And her problem is that he turned up in a T-shirt at a Senate inquiry. I mean, how dare you turn up in a T-shirt for a Senate inquiry? How dare you turn up? I mean, who are you? Who is this guy? He's just an average punter. Shouldn't he be somebody that to turn up to a Senate inquiry? And it's just the most laughable. offensive statement you can make. Now, to your point, the reason I'm raising this issue is because this is that top cover I was talking about. Now, if you watch this interview with her, and I don't watch it, but I watched her, and it's almost like she's terrified the top cover's gone. How is it that the great unwashed have the temerity to present themselves to a Senate inquiry on gas and oil prices when the point he's making is quite valid, but she is just terrified, and she is laughably ridiculous. Now she's got to be under control because nobody would embarrass themselves unless, as I said, she has an IQ of the same temperature as a glass of warm water, and it's revealing to the people, the bad people. Top cover's gone. We're in trouble, and this is not about what we think it's about.
Yes. Well, thank you. We're going to take on our final subject in this broadcast, and I appreciate your time. We're going to talk about the final act. To my producer, let's put up the image of Melania, our First Lady. You and I touched on this, Rick, a while back, so I'm going to follow up on it and connect a few other things on the theme of final act. And then I have a final important question about the final act. But here we're looking at comms. Juan O'Savin has walked us through all the different comms in terms of the dress of Melania since the beginning. Here we are now with this one, comms. Song for the final act of a movie. There are no coincidences. Everything has meaning. So, they've done the research, and this design of the dress, First Lady, was designed by, I can't read, if you go full screen with that image would help me out. I do want to read the bottom piece of it, and I just can't make sense of it at this time. But anyway, it was designed, there we go, thank you. First Lady Melania's dress was designed by Kay Donachet, I guess, and was recently exhibited at the exhibition Song for the Last Act, Song for the Final Act, back to 3 panel. So, we're going to move this dialogue along with 2 other things in a moment. But before I do, quick comment from you, Rick, on this messaging from our First Lady.
Yeah, this is continuous. She has been the most elegant billboard for messages for many, many, many years now. The book Boy by the Side of the Road, I received a copy of that. And when I first looked at it years ago, it made no sense. And over time, that book has proved to be prescient and a good guide to what's going on. So this is not just a matter of Melania's fashion sense. This is a comm. This is very clear. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, get ready. And I know we've been saying that for years, and we've been right. It just hasn't been the end, but we're now coming into it. So buckle up, because things are about to get a little untidy, a little uncomfortable. Prepare and pray, and you'll get through it.
Thank you. Last time you and I spoke on the previous Bosi Briefs, and to those just coming aboard, we publish every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to go weekly, but until calendars can arrange for such, every other week is what we've got. But, I talked about this clip, and now I'm going to run the clip. I didn't run it last time, but it's, again, on the theme of the closing of our episode today, Riccardo, which is the final act. To our producer, run the clip titled 1929. All right. Now, why is this important? 2 reasons. Number 1, it was published by President Donald J. Trump. Number 2, it's titled 1929. Now, as I decipher and analyze this very simple message, as far as I'm concerned, you see the people in New York walking happy, business as usual, fun music playing. Next thing you see is them on a bread line. Now, I've been challenged because I've published this on other shows. That's not a bread line, Chambers. Okay, so if it's not a bread line and you don't see it that way, that is fine. But the fact that it's 1929, there's your message. Now, just a little sidebar, just for fun, and not intended by the president, but sort of an extra benefit. I don't see guys with ripped jeans and T-shirts or tank tops. I don't see ladies with tattoos all over the face or nose ring and blue hair walking around in feety pajamas and flip-flops. I see well-dressed people, just a sign of how the times have changed, but that's incidental. What's your take on this level of messaging? We've got the first lady's dress, the final act. Here the president is letting us know about 1929. How do you read into this?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, 1929 was a great year. Life was good. Money was flowing. There's a bootleg hooch was flowing. Not quite, but you get my drift. It was a great time. The old saying goes that when you're getting investment advice on the stock market from the elevator operator, it's time to get out. I mean, that's whatever was going on. It was comfortable. Right. It was wealthy. It was a great time to be alive. And a manufactured disaster collapsed it. That's what people have to remember. A manufactured disaster created the Great Depression. On top of that, the interference by the government extended it. Instead of going through the correction that might have been needed, lasting a few years, it lasted well past World War II. And the interference, and there's two types there's involvement and interference by a government in these situations. This was interference by the government and it prolonged the depression. The war, the economy recovered because of the war effort that was required for the Second World War. Again, by design, the whole war was designed that way, and so it gave the people from a period of great wealth and health and happiness into misery that lasted well beyond 2 decades. And in fact, Great Britain continued after the war into the most depressed state you can imagine. This is one of the alleged winners of World War II. So it's gone from wonderful, happy days to misery. So that's point one. Point number two, the involvement of the government, which will be coming from DJT in the coming crisis, is involvement, not interference. They're not going to extend it by design. They will shorten it, and they already have re-established the foundational elements of the global economy, so we don't get into that ever again. For example, complete transparency. No more deals behind closed doors. No more whispering behind your hands. That transparency will lead to a more honest system. So the sort of manipulation that the evil ones have perpetrated upon us won't be possible. So there's a parallel, but it's different. It's almost like there's an opportunity to replay 1929 and the years that followed in a different way, almost a century later. Instead of having the collapse, which the Black Hats intended, which the cabal intended, the goals of 2030 being achieved, none of that's going to happen. But understand this. This is the Black Hat playbook, not the White Hat playbook. The White Hats are showing you what the Black Hats intended, and the White Hats will make sure what the Black Hats intended doesn't come about, but people have to see it for themselves. They have to come crashing down because that's what the Black Hats set up, and then the White Hats will not interfere, but they'll involve themselves in allowing us to eventually stand up and recover as quickly as we can. And so that's my takeaway from that, from the DJT. There's a couple of messages, parallel messages. Pay attention, be ready, but be grateful.
Great points, thank you. And now let's run this clip from Old Blue Eyes.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll make it clear, I'll state my case, of which I am certain. I've lived a life that's full, traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets.
All right. Why am I playing Frank Sinatra? Because President Trump published that. He opens up, and now the end is near. And so I face, right, the final curtain, and he did it my way. Very interesting messaging. We go from the dress to the 1929 clip, and then we have this with Sinatra, all again shared by President Trump and First Lady. I think the message is clear, but I'd love to get your feedback, sir.
For those that think this is Trump saying he's about to depart the stage, cool your jets just a fraction. Is he going to come off this particular stage? Maybe. Is he going? It would be foolish to think so, because the worst thing that could happen now is the lack of continuity. Now, is there an obvious successor? No. No organization ever moves forward without a good succession plan. You can have an infantry squad, and they know the chain of command. They know who's next in the order of seniority. Even the sergeant goes down, then the corporal takes over, then the lance corporal takes over, and then the senior private. That's just basic stuff. So get that out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
DJT is not leaving the planet. Well, he might leave the planet, but he's not leaving the stage. But his current job, right? Mm-hmm. Is he going to be president of the United States for the rest of his life? Of course not. Is there going to be a successor? Yes, there is. Does that successor have to be introduced over time so there is trust with the people? Absolutely. They have to see the successor as the obvious successor. They have to trust this individual that they will continue what was being done by DJT. That trust has to be established. None of that's happened yet. So just in that. Why Frank Sinatra? He did it his way. Trump became the man he was created to be. He did what he was required to do. So there's a couple of messages here. I did it my way. And basically, I don't care what you think. I know I've done a great job. I've done exactly what I was required to do. A subtler second message is every one of us was created to be something. Every one of us has a destiny. It doesn't matter how modest it might appear to you, but it's all critical to the plan. All of it. And this is God's plan, not our plan. So don't try to put God in a box and understand the complexities and depth and breadth of God's plan. But every one of us has got a plan. Do it your way. Whatever you are, do it your way. You were created to be something. And it wasn't a slave, that's for sure. But the larger message I think that DJT is saying is this phase is now done. We're moving into a new phase. Things will change in appearance, but in terms of the rollout of the plan, that will continue without a hiccup at all. So whatever happens in the next little while, this is the end of this phase of the operation. The next phase has already been planned and ready to go. It's already happening, but it's ready to be revealed publicly. And the continuation of this operation will go for many, many, many decades, centuries into the future. But this particular phase is now coming to a close. So get ready. The world will change, and it's not minor. It's not like the world we have now, but the bad guys are gone. No, it is fundamentally different. We have to adapt, or we won't fit in. Sorry, I'm just worrying my dog's under the desk here. All right, he just woke up. And so that's it. This is the end of the phase, but there are things to consider, other messages to get as well.
Thank you, sir. It's exactly how I analyzed it myself in terms of the counter narrative that said, well, Trump's going to exit the stage, because that's permeating out there in certain circles, of which I don't agree with. I texted Juan on that, weeks back when it became, a rumbling narrative that Trump's going to, he's out. I asked Juan in a text, any validity to this? What say you, sir? And he basically said, bullshit, not now. But to your point, At some point, the president will shuffle off from that role into other roles, and then shuffle off this planet. But I agree with you. The message is, with the theme of this final segment we've just walked through, with the dress and now this is the final act, the final stage of what we've been dealing with, and we're about to flip that over and open up a new chapter in the book. So it's all good news. But again, pray, plan, and prepare, folks, because the 1929 clip is also a warning from the president, as far as I see it. Let's put up the image of Riccardo's book. It's been another great episode talking with Riccardo Bosi. Pick up a copy of The 5 Pillars of Real Leadership. And to the 2 million Australians, get behind this national movement and make Australia godly again, and get behind Riccardo Bosi, who knows a thing or two about leadership. You can connect up with Riccardo. Those that are newly coming aboard and would like to continue to follow Riccardo, please do. Go to my website, jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Contributors tab on the upper left-hand portion of the navigation bar, and it'll drop down to various contributors to my network, including Riccardo Bosi. His biography is there, a link into his broadcasting, his world, his educational information, and his movement is all there for you. So continue to connect up with Riccardo and follow him there. And this book can be picked up in 2 places, preferably at wilkinsonpublishing.com.au, wilkinsonpublishing.com.au. Also can be found at amazon.com. As always, I thank you very much, Riccardo. I know how busy you are. You're busy getting things done, and that's why you're busy. And I appreciate the time that you give to me every other Monday here at Bosi Briefs. And to our audience, join Riccardo and our panel, which consists Global Defense War Monthly Military Panel. We're recording it this coming Wednesday. It will be released at the end of this coming week. The week we're in, rather, here. It's Monday as you're watching this broadcast. And the Global Defense War Panel will feature Riccardo Bosi, Michael Jaco, Derek Johnson, I believe Colonel Chuck Sellers, and a new participant. We have what I call the 5th seat, revolving seat. And joining us is Dr. Lee Merritt, who's gotten a double thumbs up from Riccardo. So thank you for that, sir. We interviewed Dr. Merritt years ago on the COVID line. We're going to have her weigh in on the issues that we address on the Global Defense War Military Panel. Final sign off and words from you, Riccardo.
Thanks, John. I'd just like to take a moment for Australia. Today's Anzac Day in Australia, 25th of April. And if you'll indulge me for just 30 seconds or so, this was a coming of age moment for Australia and New Zealand on the world stage. On the 25th of April 1915, Allied troops landed at the Dardanelles, at Gallipoli. Constantinople was the target, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Winston Churchill, as the First Lord of the Admiralty, designed this plan to bring a strategic objective of removing Turkey from the 4 powers that were fighting the First World War: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Turkey, and Bulgaria. They wanted Turkey out by going through the Dardanelles, that thin straits, and they attempted to force a passage with naval assets only. Didn't work. So the plan was to land troops onto the peninsula there and take it that way. Well, didn't quite work out. Long story short, almost an equal number of divisions, and in the scale of the First World War, it's actually quite small, but it was significant. 15 divisions from the Allies, 16 divisions from the Turks, something like either side of 500,000 troops on the Allied side, 300,000 troops on the Turkish side. The casualties were about equal. Dead and wounded, 300,000 on the Allies, dead and wounded about 300,000 on the Turks. It was a significant disaster. It was a failure. It was a Turkish victory and an Allied failure. Allied deaths, who fought? Okay, the Brits, they lost about 56,000. The French were there. Sorry, the Allied deaths in total about 56,000. The Brits lost 22. The French lost, I think, maybe 10 to 14, depending how you do the counting, 10 to 14,000. 8,700 Australians died. 2,700 New Zealanders died. an unmitigated disaster strategically and tactically. But it is, if there is a sacred day in Australia after the resurrection of Christ, because you don't compare the two, but if there's a day in Australia which has many, it's Anzac Day, and this is the one day you don't mess with. And today's Anzac Day, so like millions of other Australians around the country, the family got up nice and early and at dawn to commemorate the landing. We played the last post, 2 minutes silence, then the rouse, which is the get yourselves out of bed, you lazy buggers. And then we said the Anzac Oath, remembering those brave men. Anzac stands for the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. It was created on the beaches of Gallipoli, and then it continued to fight through World War One, like that, the Anzacs, and that's where that term comes from. And the hat behind me, that where is it over here? The slouch hat, the Australian slouch hat.
Yes.
That's us. That was the hat the men wore. And so today's a very special day in Australia's history, remembering the countless men and women who fought and died and tended the sick in World War One, but particularly the birth of Australia as a force of its own. And it was used in both wars, first and second, as a shock troops. There was just something about the Australians that was tougher, harder, more resilient, and less likely to retire than in the other forces. Now, the unkind amongst them would say they were just the colonials, and the Brits were happy to waste colonial lives against German forces. But the truth was they fought harder and better than most. And in fact, Rommel in the northern desert said if he had to take hell, he'd use the Australians to take it and the New Zealanders to hold it, or one way, New Zealanders to take it and the Australians to hold it. Either way, General and later Field Marshal Rommel had the utmost respect for the Anzacs. And so it's a big day for us in this country. We start early with a gunfire breakfast, which is a cup of coffee with rum. And then we go to the local pub and play two-up, which is a gambling game, which was popular with the men. And the police don't dare interfere with the illegal gambling going on in the pubs, because 2 o'clock on an Anzac afternoon, you're a brave man to challenge anybody in a uniform wearing ribbons. So anyway, thank you for indulging me. This is a big day for us, Anzac Day, 25th of April, and we remember all the diggers that gave so much to give us what we have today. And we're going to do you proud, men and ladies. We're going to do you proud. We're going to rebirth this entire nation and create something you'll be very proud of. So thank you very much, John.
You bet. Well, thank you. I've learned something. I'm sure many of our viewers here in America and other parts of the world have learned now about Anzac Day. So best to you and your Australian population here on Anzac Day. And thanks for sharing that with us. And thanks for all your insights and analysis of the events we combed through in this particular episode. And again, folks, Global Defense War Military Panel will be published later this week with Ricardo Bosi and the other military guests. Thank you, sir, and I'll be right back.
Join JMC Broadcasting's monthly Global Defense War Military Panel. JMC hosts an esteemed panel of military experts, including Ricardo Bosi, Tom Lennox, Chuck Sellers, Michael Jaco, Derek Johnson, Brad Wozni, and other military guests. Join us each month, where this panel of esteemed guests analyze the current events across a broad spectrum of topics, addressing the questions and concerns that you have. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. John looks forward to seeing you at the next episode of the Global Defense War Military Panel broadcast, right here on jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right, another great episode with Ricardo Bosi. A couple of quick announcements before we wrap up the broadcast. And thank you for being here with me. All new Patriot Q&A hour. You know, we launched this year, January, with Will Barney, February, Mike Jaco, March, Derek Johnson, April now, Captain Rob Cunningham, and next month, May, 107. So learn about these options. Get in our private Zoom room, because the purpose of this, for one solid hour, we start on time, we end on time. Come join us in the premium portal each and every month. This month, April 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Captain Rob Cunningham, for the purpose of answering your questions. It's Q&A time. You don't want to miss that. Learn about that. jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Portal. And we also, of course, have a free subscription. Everything other than the Premium Portal that we produce, of course, is free to the public. So learn about this, all new Patriot Q&A. Rob Cunningham, and next month, 107. Speaking about 107, again, just to remind you all, Fraud Fighter Summit, visit fraudfightersummit.us. Come meet 107, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, and many, many others for a 3-day conference in Las Vegas. Mark your calendars and visit freedomfightersummit.us. All right, well, that's pretty much brings us to a conclusion. I want to thank Riccardo Bosi once again for his keen insights and brilliant analysis, as always, helping us all to make sense of the madness and deconstruct the deceptions that are before us. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.